So now we're ready to start going into SolidCAM. We have modeled our stock material, we've modeled our zero, our origin, and we can come up to our SolidCAM and our tree and hit new milling. SolidCAM is going to start up. It's warning me that my part's not saved. I didn't save my part, and I absolutely would prefer for SolidCAM to save my part. Now, inside here, there's a couple options. One, setup. Usually don't have to modify this. Use model file directory. This is a nice feature, my preferred feature that I use, and what this will do is automatically create the CAM part and all the SolidCAM's files inside the same location that your part's saved. You have the option to point it anywhere you want on your computer, but if you have your part in a location where it's safe to put your CAM programs, then I suggest using the use model file directory. This is the model file that we're working on. Since the file was open when we hit SolidCAM new, it automatically put the model in here. And we have our units intrametric. Generally, like I said, once you get this set up, if you're using model file directory and your part was open when you hit new milling, this will all be filled out for you, and you'll probably be working in either intrametric, and once set, it will stay on that. So now I'm going to hit OK. Okay, what SolidCAM did now is made an assembly that we can work in, and it's asking us for some initial setup functions. First, it wants to know a post processor, and if you have your default post processor, it would default to that. If you need to change it to something, all your listed post processors are here. I'm just going to pick G Milling Haas 3-axis. I'm only going to go over the things that absolutely need to be done to start working. Define our coordinate system. That absolutely needs to be done. Like I said before, we have some features to select faces for zeros, and you can use tools inside SolidCAM to manipulate the zero around. What I'm going to do is, since we made our coordinate systems, is I'm going to come down to select the coordinate system, and it's going to list the three that we created. I'm actually going to pick the one in the center. I like that one. And I'm going to hit OK. And now it's going to ask us for some data. Tool start level, tool clearance level, upper level of the part. And actually I'm going to change the upper level to the top of my stock material. That way SolidCAM is aware that I may be working above my part. Part lower level, I'm going to pick the bottom of the stock material just so I can work inside that area. And tool Z start level 1 inch is fine. Let's accept this. And now we have our coordinate system, and it showed up on the screen. And there's our coordinate system. Stock model, to define our stock model. Now, since we modeled our stock model, we can use a 3D model here. So I pulled down 3D model, and I'm going to click on that body that we created, hit OK. Now the target. Now, since the target is inside of our stock body, you may have to select an edge, or depending on your settings, you may have to hide the stock body. You can hide the stock body by coming over to this quick view over here, go down to your design model, find your two bodies, and you can hide the stock so you can pick the target. In this case, I don't need to do that because I can define my 3D model and just pick an edge of my target. Okay. So now we've defined our coordinate system. We've given a stock and we've given it a target. We've also pulled down the post processor that we're going to be working with. At this point, we can hit OK. And I'm going to go back and change my scene for this assembly to warm kitchen again. Like I said, I prefer that. And now we're ready to start programming. We have in our tree, we can see the stock is set up, the target's set up. We can actually right click and say show, and we can get a verification of what our stock model looks like. We can do the same thing for our target model, get a verification of what our target model looks like. So our coordinate system, our stock, and our target were all set up ahead of time, but we can always come back into our coordinate system, come back into our stock and our target, and redefine those, or add more. You could have multiple stocks, could have multiple targets, and you could have multiple coordinate systems. Most likely, you'll be adding more coordinate systems if you're working on different sides of the block, and we'll get into that later. But that's definitely something that you should get used to going back into, is the coordinate system manager, where we can build more origins. And defining them is the same way as we defined them before. We could select faces, we can pull them from SolidWorks, but the ability to continually add origins is in the software for your different faces or your different setups. So this part's ready to add some toolpath to.